song. One of the contradictions here is with a technical issue. So our St. Louis team is going to be leading with the African National Fight song, and we're going to be joining in, and we'll be listening in as well. Uhuru.
Patrice Lumumba's life won't be in vain. We are winning. Keep up the work in Marcus Garvey's name. We are winning. Independent and free. What we need. We are winning. Africa will bask in our victory. We are winning. Long live the nations of our African nations. Freedom, organization, socialist world, our creation. One big strong, yes, we are one. We are winning. We are
Uhuru, we are winning. My name is Jaina Lumumba. I am the technology specialist for the African People's Socialist Party. I am what they call an Uhuru baby. I grew up within this organization and I'm very proud. For over 60 years, my direct leadership, Chairman Omali Ishitela, who is also born right here in St. Petersburg, Florida, has been servicing our people, servicing African people and Black people here and abroad, at home and abroad, as we say. And I want to start off. I read from this book during the last rally. It's the quotations from Chairman Omali Ishitela, and it really describes who we are. And I think that that's really relevant to begin with, so that everybody has the context and knows who we are and what we believe. It reads on page 52. It says African internationalism recognizes that the organizational unity of the African working class is necessary to give every expression of the African Revolution anywhere on earth a strategic character. It recognizes that revolutionary organizational unification under the leadership of the African working class is practical unification of African people and the in the revolutionary African nation state. And since 1972, the African People's Socialist Party has held up genuine interests of our colonized people and fought concrete battles for concrete results for our revolution. Concretely, we have organized among the masses of our people on the jobs, on the campuses, in the prisons, and in the communities. And I really want to highlight and salute the leadership of Chairman Omali Ishitela. We have 52 and likely growing economic institutions, from Uhuru Foods and Pies. We have community, we've rebuilt buildings to provide housing for newly freed Africans, with felonies. And we have furniture stores, establishing a doula program to combat the African women's maternity mortality rates. And we have all of this unprecedented activity that 2 years ago on July 29th, the US government and Joe Biden decided that they would threaten all of this work with a 15-year prison sentence to Chairman Omali Ishitela for building what we understand and know in the party as dual and contending power. And not just him, but also Penny Hess and Jesse Neville, two white members of the African People's Solidarity Committee. And we want to start with a video of what happened on that day. Are we able to roll the video on what happened on that day? Do we have that? Okay. In St. Louis, they're gonna be displaying this video, and we're gonna work so that we can show the videos of what happened on that day. Uhuru.
This is the FBI. You have a federal warrant for this address. Keep your hands up and follow orders. This is the FBI. We have a warrant for this.
They handcuffed me and my wife out here. They wanted me to sit on the curb while they were carrying this out, something that I refused to do. They wanted my wife to sit on the curb out here, that she refused to do.
As I was coming out, this big old drone met me.
The only revolutionary organization that's done something here on the ground practically for African people is the one that's come under attack. Institution that offers a community radio station, a newspaper, a commercial kitchen, an Aquaba Hall rental space, and community office for our organizers. That was the building that has come under attack.
You need a breach? What do you need?
Need one.
I don't know.
I'll tell Ben the money. Don't take it.
We will build a movement of white people that says hands off the Uhuru movement.
They see in the African People's Socialist Party a vanguard for the struggle for the liberation of our people. They see that because not just what we do here in the United States, but because we had the temerity to do like Garvey, to do like Malcolm X, and take the struggle of black people around the world.
Uhuru, so as you can see, the FBI, the state decided to make quite a vicious attack, not only on the chairman, but on all of the institutions, all of the work that we do here. They stole materials directly from this building. They destroyed one of the so-called unindicted co-conspirators' laptops and destroy materials, really to usurp all of the work that we do here and in St. Louis as well. And it really is important for us to understand who the state is and how the state functions, not just to see this as some sort of isolated event. Not only is this not the first time that the state has made an attack on the Uhuru movement, but it's important for us to understand who the state is. And I'm going to reference the One Africa, One Nation document, and it reads, "The state is the police and other organizations that force us to do something that we might not ordinarily want to do. The reason somebody pays a parking ticket is because if we don't pay, the state will intervene. They have this organized capacity to come and do something to you, to put you in jail. This is organized repression called the state. And it reads further that what is it that stands between the people who are hungry and the supermarkets filled with groceries? What stands between homeless people and the abandoned buildings? It is the state. It's the police. You can't take the food or move into the empty housing because the state is there to protect that particular relationship. It protects the property of the bourgeoisie. It protects the social system itself from anybody that is there to contend with it. And it also wants you to rely solely on the state, especially the African working class, for anything that you may need. And so the economic institutions of the African People's Socialist Party disrupts that dependency on the state. And that is one of the primary reasons why Chairman Omali Ishitela is being attacked. But it even goes deeper than that, because you have the question of freedom of speech in this country. But for Africans, we've always known that there's not freedom of speech. You know, you can't say what you want to say, because if you do, then, well, the state will intervene. And Chairman really speaks on the question of free speech as it differs from the citizen versus the subject, the colonized African subject. We know that we can't say what we want to say. And when the documents were being drafted, those documents weren't being drafted for us in mind. We were slaves in this country. We didn't even have we couldn't even utter a word, especially not to a white person who is dominating and controlling our lives. So what we're going to do is we're going to show the next video. It's a short video, but it's going to continue to highlight this case. And do you mind, Chairman, if I reach your... In St. Louis, they have the ability to show it, and they're going to read that. It's the Hands Off Uhuru video. Uhuru.
Uhuru, the hands off of Uhuru video was already shown. We could go right into the interview.
Question is a mural that hung in St. Pete City Hall. A lot of people here, I see some comrades in the audience nodding, are familiar with this incident that occurred. And it's quite historic, and it goes into the so-called freedom of speech issue. So I'm going to transition. We're going to have a sit down with the chairman now, and we're going to begin this special interview. Uhuru.
Serious self-criticism to those who are participating in this meeting, because we're not moving the way we're supposed to be moving with this meeting. It's experiencing a severe contradiction in terms of organization and what have you. And part of that is the fact that we haven't used this center for a few months now, and we're in the process of trying to put things together and pull the kind of organization that we have to have together on the ground here. It's not play-play. The fact that the United States government plans to disrupt the struggle for Black people and it's using an attack on the African People's Socialist Party, the Uhuru movement, as a means to do that. The U.S. government has charged me with being a Russian agent, and based on that, it plans to put me in prison for 15 years. We have a trial that's coming up on September 3rd. And one reason we wanted to have this discussion around the mural is because it's part of an actual history that people can research, that some of you know about, that talks about how I'm doing now, the same thing I've been doing for the last 60 years. And so this is a contrivance, it's a whole concoction that's made up and fabricated to be able to make another assault on our ability as African people to express our own opinions about our situation and to organize to challenge that. I want to say that it's important that we do have this meeting here and talk about the mural for that reason, but also it's important to contextualize participating in this meeting, whether in St. Petersburg, St. Louis, and et cetera. And that's yesterday's attempted assassination of Donald John Trump. And I'm sure that people have serious opinions about that, about what happened. People saw that. And we are going to put out a formal discussion. But in the interim, we're talking about the significance of this meeting and what it is that we're doing, and the movement that's happening now that we're characterizing as Freedom Summit. And between now and the end of the trial that they propose to initiate in September, and that they've talked about up to now lasting for an entire month. That's the discussion that they're having now. But the fact is that, and everybody should be aware about what their opinions of Donald Trump is, et cetera. This is something that this movement that we have already told them about. We have put out positions around this, not so much about Donald Trump, but about the question of free speech. And if you have a situation where there's a history as far as African people are concerned with assaults on our right for free expression, free speech. Somebody, I think last year, or perhaps even this year, celebrating the anniversary of the murder of Emmett Till because they said he whistled at a white woman. We have the issues of black people being able to express our opinions. And in fact, we've even this is something that we're quite familiar with in the African community, that even jail people for what they call reckless eyeball, looking at a white woman. So the question of speech has been critical for us. But the fact is, the question, the reality is that what does a slave have to talk about? To speak about? What is that? The slave person wants to talk about, have the right to speak on is freedom. But freedom is illegal under slavery. And freedom is illegal under colonialism. And to make that point explicitly real for us, we are reminded that the First Amendment of the Bill of Rights to the Constitution was ratified by the United States Congress in 1791. But in 1791, the people were enslaved on plantations here. So it was not for us, it was for white people. It was for people who had defined themselves as fighting against tyranny, who had left Europe running from tyranny, from kings and queens, where they had no rights at all. No right to free speech. The only right that existed was the divine right of the king. The king made the laws, that's it, this is what you do, etc., etc. So, escaping from that tyranny, they came to this country. Now, this land that we call the United States. And then what did they do? They took the land from the indigenous people, and they captured African people. And so in running from tyranny, they imposed tyranny on black people and on the indigenous population here. So the Constitution was not for us. And the fact is that the law that governed our relationship to this country and to people in this country was something that the United States Supreme Court clarified in 1857 with the so-called Dred Scott decision, when it said that a black man has no rights that a white man has to respect. That was the Supreme Court of the United States that made that ruling. That wasn't something that I came up with. The United States Supreme Court came up with that. Same, more or less, Supreme Court that people are debating about today, whether it's being stacked for the Republicans and whether they are conservative Supreme Court rulers, etc. This was the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, Taney, who was the one who wrote that ruling, and that the whole Supreme Court said that black people have no rights that white people have to respect. That was not changed as a consequence of any other court ruling. What changed that was the fact that a civil war happened in 1862-63 that ended in 1865, where African people were supposed to be free. This is the point. The only time that we became free was a consequence of that civil war. Then you had these amendments, like the 13th and 14th Amendment in particular, that was supposed to confer freedom on black people. This is the thing that overturned the Taney ruling, if you will, that said that black people had no rights that a white man had to respect. But even with that, it did not automatically confer rights on us, did it? Because if that was the case, it wouldn't have been necessary for a 1964 Civil Rights Bill, wouldn't have been necessary for a 1965 Voting Rights Act. The fact is, we had no rights. The Constitution did not cover us, and in fact, the characterized relationship that we have, that is to say, many scholars, many legal scholars, characterize the relationship that we have with the U.S. government is de jure freedom by law, but de facto, in fact, that we were not free. That's the reality that we've been struggling with forever. We've always been struggling around this question of freedom and free speech. So that's a critical question. And it's really important to understand that when they attack us around the question of free speech, they've attacked free speech. It's not my free speech. It's not black people's free speech. We have no free speech. So the free speech literally was for white people. And so what happens is that the enemies of freedom of speech will use what they think is an unpopular subject to be able to attack this right and get agreement and unity from the general population. So if you want to attack free speech, attack black people. Attack the right for black people to be free. There's an assumption that the majority of white people say, yeah, we can do that. We don't like what they say. In fact, we don't even like their music until we can steal it. But the thing is, this is how this acts out in real world. And so they can get white people to vote against and act against their own interests when they attack these rights based on the assumption that they're doing to black people who they don't like anyway. So they're chumping these people. They're playing these people. They're using us as an attack on basic rights that we never had anyway. How the hell are you going to take free speech from me when I ain't never had it? When Garvey didn't have it 100 and some odd years ago. When Nat Turner didn't have it in 1831. When he said strike at night and spare no one. When none of us really have free speech, how can you just take my free speech? No, you use the attack on me as a means by which you can attack the First Amendment and the Bill of Rights that were put there essentially for white people. We fight. We fight. Black people have fought historically since we've been here for democratic rights. We are the ones who fought for the right to free speech. We are the ones who fought for the right to be able to vote and participate in elections. That's what black people have done historically. All things that look like democracy in this country were things that were fought for and won in actuality to some extent by black people. So this whole notion that somehow when the African People's Socialist Party ran two candidates for election in St. Petersburg, Florida in 1917 and 1919, we were doing it because we were paid for by the Russians. The fact is nobody has ever paid a bigger price for the right to vote in the United States than black people. We've had our leaders assassinated, churches bombed, children killed, horrible things done to us as a people in this country just for the right to vote. We fought for that. Black people fought for that. People died for that. King was assassinated based on that. And other people also lost their lives. So this notion that somehow we're working for Russians because we do this, and I don't know anything in Russian history where Russians had to face water hoses and cattle prods and church bombings and things like that in order to vote. Black people did that. So it's a lie
that is obvious to anybody who pays any attention to anything that looks like history in this country and in the world. So that's why it's important for us to have this discussion and to have it here. Talk about the mural. Talk about the fact that they would put up the most ridiculous, obscene, offensive things about black people in the seat of the government. And right here, the local government, you can go to the city hall without seeing this obscene caricature of black people with extended limbs and huge pink lips all over our face and whatever, and that the people who had the power refused to remove it. This is what they've done to us. This is our thing that we responded to. That's why they imprisoned me and gave me a 5-year prison sentence for taking that mural down. Because we had no rights. And that's what we've been fighting for all along. And so when you see this thing that's happening with Donald Trump, what was Trump doing when they shot him? Speaking. They shot him for speaking. And the fact is, that's the price that they paid when they attacked the right for free speech. It's not my free speech. So even Donald Trump, the former president of the United States, not what you think of him, and I got some serious opinions about him, but it's the question of free speech. And people will celebrate, many people, because it was Trump who got shot. But what you're celebrating, when you have the United States government itself attacking the right of free speech, it encourages anybody else to attack the right of free speech. So that they can say that Marcus Garvey, we don't like what you said, we're going to put you in prison. If they can say that Martin Luther King, we don't like what you say, we're going to blow you away. If they can say Malcolm X, we don't like what you're saying, we're going to kill you. If they can say Omali Shatella, we don't like what you say, we're going to put you in prison for 15 years. That encourages all the other people out there. You can call them rogues, you can call them people who have been misdirected, etc. But when the government leads the assault on free speech, it encourages everybody out there to do the same thing. This is what we are dealing with right now. And we'll be saying more about that tomorrow. We'll make a statement on this whole question, but on this whole issue about the assassination attempt of Trump. But we think it's very serious as it relates to the whole question of free speech. And the problem is that white people haven't noticed the question of free speech, generally speaking, because it hasn't affected them in the same way. They've been lynching us around speech. They've been bombing our churches around speech. They've been killing our leaders around speech, and it didn't even make a wave at all. Now the question of free speech is now beginning to penetrate into their own society. And this is something that's really, really, really important. And we want everybody to fight for free speech. And our objective is to tell people that you have to fight this question for freedom of speech. You have to fight this question of freedom of association. And you cannot allow them to say that we are attacking Omali Shatella and the Uhuru 3 and the Uhuru movement because we don't like what they said, because we don't like it that they ran candidates talking about reparations, because we don't like it because they initiated a petition to the United Nations that would call on the United Nations to look into the fact that the United States is violating the 1948 Convention on the Prevention and Punishment of the Crime of Genocide as it relates to black people. We saying that this is what all of this is about. This is what they attacked us from, and yet they're silent. When they attacked this building, this ain't the first time we were attacked. When they came at pre-dawn on July 29th in 2022, they attacked this very building we are sitting in, 300 strong, of various police organizations from the Bay Area, with the National Guards there in the dome, and also with FBI agents down here. They attacked us 300 strong. And they said they attacked it because they were concerned about what we were going to say about the murder of Tyrone Lewis right down the street from here. You didn't hear a single civil libertarian come out to defend us against that attack. And they said why they attacked us, etc. So this is what we're looking at. The attack on free speech, freedom of speech, the attack on basic democratic rights that's supposed to apply to everybody starts with the attack on African people, starts with the attack on the indigenous people here who are living in concentration camps, even as we have this discussion that they refer to as Indian reservation. That's the reality that we're living in. And the fact is that we talk about it is one of the reasons they want to shut us up. What we are going to talk about, and as it has been spoken about since we've been in prison in the United States, etc., And it's not just relevant to us here. The fact is, this is a problem that all colonized people around the world, we become uppity niggas. The moment you begin to talk about being free, the moment you begin to say that there are all the rights that apply to the Europeans and settlers have to apply to us as well, it becomes a serious kind of problem for them. But we have to be able to do this. And I just wanted to say that you have something for us.
I do. I've got some questions here.
Oh, so I thought you were going to mess with me on there. Okay.
No. What we're establishing is we want everyone to see the mural that vile mural that you tore down. So we're getting that set up now. But just so everyone knows, we do have a special conversation, and some of the questions are coming from not just me, but also some of our other partners.
Okay. So I wanted to just open up and say that this is an important discussion, because this discussion that we're going to have in terms of the mural is the evidence, part of the evidence of how ridiculous the charge is that we work for Russia. They didn't say we were working for Russia when I tore the mural down. They didn't say we were working for Russians when we defended Tyrone Lewis and his family after he was gunned down here. They didn't say we were working for the Russians after they murdered George Floyd, and we organized around that. What we are forcing them to do is face their own history. And Frederick Douglass made a statement. Somebody should Google this. Frederick Douglass on the question of how did he characterize it in terms of the Negro problem. You can Google that while we're sitting here. Frederick Douglass on the Negro problem. And it's a struggle that we've been waging. Let us say African people have been waging now forever. And I'm just going to read this from Douglass, and then you can read this from Douglass, and then we can get into the discussion. What does Douglass say?
It says here, it says the organization of your association was an important first step in the progress of the colored people in this city. It says it's an institution well fitted to improve the minds and elevate the sentiments not only of its members, but of the general public. Nowhere else outside of the courts of law and the Congress of the United States have I heard vital public questions. Oh, excuse me.
Is that the one where it says men talk about the Negro problem?
Right, yeah. Let me go back to this. It says here that—
When was that? 1890?
1890. Yes. It was,
1890? What does it say?
It says, it has been well said that in an important sense, words are things. They're especially such when they're employed to express the popular sentiment concerning the Negro. To couple his name with anything in this world seems to damage it and damage him likewise. Hence, I object to characterizing the relation subsisting between the white and colored people of this country as the Negro problem, as if the Negro have precipitated that problem, as if he were in any way responsible for them. Should I continue?
Yeah.
Now,
you said that men talk about the Negro problem, but
he says that the true problem is not the Negro, but the nation, not the law-abiding blacks of the South. Excuse me, there's a control issue going on. It says, not the law-abiding blacks of the South, but the white men of that section who by fraud, violence, and persecution are breaking the law, trampling on the Constitution, corrupting the ballot box, and defeating the ends of justice. The true problem is whether these white ruffians, is that right? Ruffians shall be allowed by the nation to go on in their lawless and nefarious career, dishonoring the government and making its very name a mockery. It is whether this nation has in itself sufficient moral stamina to maintain its own honor and integrity by vindicating its own constitution and fulfilling its own pledges, or whether it has already touched that dry rock of moral depravity by which nations decline and fall and governments fade and vanish. The United States government made the Negro a citizen. Will it protect him as a citizen? This is the problem. It made him a soldier. Will it honor him as a patriot? This is the problem. It made him a voter. Will it defend his right to vote? This is the problem. This, I say, is more a problem for the nation than for the Negro. And this is the side of the question far more than the other, which should be kept in view by the American people.
Uhuru. So this is Frederick Douglass. He made another statement relative to that, I think, in 1850 something. He says that men talk about the Negro problem, but the real problem is America. And that if the question is whether or not Americans will live up to your Constitution, whether you will have patriotism enough to defend that Constitution and all the rights that's inferred there. So that's the thing that we have fought for more than anybody, more than the Americans. African people in this country have fought for constitutional rights and died for constitutional rights. We did that. When we were talking about the right to vote, that was we who fought for that right. All of the basic rights that we are talking about, African people help to define what freedom looks like in this country. And so to have a government then that has deprived us of anything that looks like, smells like, tastes like freedom, then to charge us as the offenders in the struggle against freedom, the ones who attack of freedom of speech. In fact, the U.S. government in the statement that it made concerning its indictment was saying that we are attempting to, how do they characterize it? How do they say that? Weaponize free speech. They say we are trying to weaponize free speech. And as servants of Russia, we are weaponizing free speech. And the truth of the matter is, free speech is a weapon. That's when the white people got free speech. It was a weapon against what? It was a weapon against tyranny. It was a weapon against people, keeping them from being able to talk and to defend themselves and to advocate their own interests. That's what it's a weapon for. And so now they target us for standing up for what they're supposed to be about. So here the African People's Socialist Party, the Uhuru movement, having to fight the United States government and some of its citizens in defense of the Constitution that it's supposed to be protecting. Anyway, go ahead.
Yeah. Well, I want to continue. We read from Frederick Douglass. This where I'm reading from is from the very first issue of the Burning Spear newspaper, December 22nd, 1969, and it's by Ododua?
Odua. That's right. Odua. I guess so.
Ododua.
Yeah.
It reads, 3 years ago, on December 29th, 1966, an artless mural depicting Black people as grotesque-looking minstrels lined a wall of the infamous St. Petersburg City Hall. Talking about St. Petersburg, Florida, not St. Petersburg, Russia.
That's right.
It stood for everything. It stood for everything that is near and dear to all whites of this city. It was a racist mural kept on the wall to keep the white man's image perpetuated and to remind Blacks of their inferior subservient position in this colony. Well, as of this date, one articulate young Black man has spent 17 months in hell and is still living an hour-by-hour hell because he ripped this filthy, artless rag from the walls of City Hall. Something every Black in St. Petersburg, Florida wanted to do, but didn't have the nerve to do. They simply lowered their eyes when they looked at the mural and moved on to dutifully pay their water bill or visit the other offices in the lily white staff building. Joseph Waller, now known as Chairman Amalia Chatella, spent time in the St. Petersburg City Hall, the Clearwater Jail, and Raker Prison for tearing down the trash. So the first question that I want to ask you, Chairman, is to describe to us what the motivation was behind tearing down this mural.
Well, yeah, that's an important question. I can tell you about what happened that day. December 1966. But that day has to be protected in the whole event because this was part of the struggle that African people have been involved in. Not tearing down a mural or anything like that, but we had gone through a process of struggling for rights, voting rights, civil rights, things like that, churches bombed, etc. And the movement, the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee that I was a member of at that time,
organization that put forward the fact that we had to stop struggling just for what they call civil rights, but we had to fight for black power. Black people had that power in our whole lives. And this was an extraordinary thing. All of these very erudite and smart people who were television pundits, things like that, had a real problem working with the black and power being used in the same sentence. And so they knew what black was, they knew what power was. They said, but black power was something extraordinary. You would hear these crazy kinds of discussions going on by people who otherwise recognized as smart. What do they mean by black? You know, that was such an extraordinary thing. And also, we had concluded even a bit earlier that from the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee that we were not just going to be somebody who would be there to be killed. You can't come and beat on us and shoot us and kill us and not get a respect for human beings. And so when we put forth Black Power, we moved from the office of the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee right there on 22nd Street that they destroyed. Now, they don't want any evidence of what existed there before. And when we, in 1965, the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee had gone to Alabama, and Lowndes County, Alabama, and created the Lowndes County Freedom Organization that took it more than just trying to integrate into the Democratic Party. We had organized the Mississippi Freedom Democratic Party at one time. That's Fannie all of that came through that movement. In 1965, that was in 1964, that came out of Freedom Summer. The Freedom Summer that we're going to replicate here between now and the end of the trial that we're going to have in September. So it was part of a SNCC summer project, if you will. And then what happened was in 1965, the Lowndes County Freedom Organization initiated a campaign to run for office in an all-black political party in Lowndes County, Alabama. And in Alabama, like the symbol for the Alabama Democratic Party, which is the little white party, was a rooster, a white rooster. And so SNCC put forth the symbol of the Lowndes County Freedom Organization as a panther. Black Panther that people have become familiar with. It was created in Lowndes County, Alabama in 1965. That's where it came from. And the media started calling it the Black Panther Party, etc. So SNCC forces in different places have begun to characterize themselves as the Black Panther Party. And in St. Petersburg, Florida, right there on 22nd Street, right down 2 doors from Mr. Shealy's back committee. Right next door to Hal Davis Barbershop, right across the street from Buddy West's Barbershop, this huge pamphlet was put on the wall, and we marched from that office in St. Petersburg, Florida, to the City Hall. And when so it was the Black Panther, it was Black Power, Black Panthers that marched on this City Hall. And when we got to City Hall, we had already talked and sent letters to the mayor about moving that horrific thing they call a mural piece down, and they had just been so condescending to us and to black people in general, and they refused to do it. So we marched in there, marched downtown. We didn't intend to take the mural down. In fact, we had discussions, said, look, the other way we can take the mural down. They won't even notice it when they happen. Just put on some coveralls, get a ladder, and put a rag in our pocket, in the back pocket, just go up there and take the mural down right in public. They will never say anything because that's what we're supposed to be doing. So that's it. Let's do that. That's what we're talking about jokingly. But when we got down there, there was a little old lady who had joined the march on the way. And she might have even had on a robe or something when she marched down the City Hall and there with us. And we were standing on the City Hall steps speaking, and the little old lady stood up to talk. And she was talking about this typical thing that was happening to black people then, that we pay all this money into insurance companies, etc., and then they steal the money. And when people need the money, they can't get paid for what it is, illness, death, etc. And she was talking, and the white press and the cops that were there began laughing at her when she was talking. And when that happened, it infuriated me we snatched the mural from the wall. And when I snatched the mural from the wall, the clerk of the court, I didn't know who she was at the time, but they've written lovingly about her subsequent to that. When we snatched the mural from the wall, this white woman runs out and yells, "You black bastards!" Right? And we marched down, we're going down Central Avenue toward the south side, and the cops rushed us finally. They followed us for a while. They were scared because they had run into Africans like that. They had heard about this black power people. The cop grabbed me. He was literally trembling. He grabbed my arm and he was trembling. He could hardly hold on to me because he was trembling so much. And so anyway, they followed us and arrested us down Central Avenue in the parking lot. They arrested me in the parking lot of Web City, used to be kind of notorious marketplace here in St. Petersburg. And then they took us to court. And while in court, they charged me with 11 different offenses, including disturbing the peace, destruction of public property, grand larceny, inciting, not inciting, right, but there's 11 different offenses. So they tried me for destruction of public property, sentenced me for that. I went to jail for that. And then they took me to another court to try me for grand larceny. And they said it was grand larceny because they defined it as taking the property of the legal owner with the intent to deprive the legal owner of the property, and that we did that by destroying it, and which meant that they had actually tried me twice for the same thing, because when they tried me for public property, that was effectively, but that wasn't something that the Supreme Court had ruled on. That was an open question, and so the Supreme Court agreed to take that case because it was something they wanted to resolve. How you can try somebody misdemeanor and then try to put effect the same thing, felony, just call it by another name, and they did that. So the Supreme Court ruled in our favor and said that if this happened, it was double jeopardy. But then they remanded the case back to the local. And the local said, nope, that's not what happened. And then they put me on trial for a third time. For the same thing. So not only was not double jeopardy, it was triple jeopardy. And this time they said it was 3 years. So this is the history of that. But the thing is that the Black Power movement was exploding, and a whole new generation of people who would engage and struggle on a different level. And that's what this is. And this was the first direct act of the Black Power movement. We took it there. This was in January. This is December 29th. I think in March, early March, the Black Panther Party also went into a government institution in the state capital, and they had a demonstration with guns. And so we kicked it off here in St.
Uhuru. We have an image here, just so that everyone can see. This is the image that was hanging in St. Petersburg, Florida City Hall, and it's really vile. There's even African children with some old white man peering over him, and some.
No, the only African there on outside of the outside.
Yes, I see.
The Africans are outside entertaining white people inside under the shed.
Oh man.
Yeah, and they got everything, watermelon.
And,
yeah.
And this was, I mean, the artist here was like, what was it, the WPA convention?
Yeah, it was paid for by the federal government.
Yeah, the government paid different artists, and this was the one in St. Petersburg City Hall. It's really quite grotesque. And you mentioned the white press. I wanted to read. Yes, thank you.
See, this is a caricature of Black people. It was on the wall of City Hall. This was not ordinary, typical Klan enclave. This was one that was not supposed to be a Klan enclave. Right here, there's supposed to be African people. Of course, that's me, that's Tommy Ray, and John Frank, who's passed away. So, yeah.
Uhuru. Yeah, quite wow. But we were talking about the white press, and I wanted to read a segment from your book on the quotations that talks about the function of the Burning Spear newspaper, from which I'm reading now. It says, the most important instrument of agitation and propaganda in the hands of the party units is the burning spear, the central organ of our party. Only the spear can win over students and workers in thousands of factories, cities, campuses, and blocks. Our party organizers can talk to a certain number of students and workers at a campus or factory, but the burning spear, that collective agitator and organizer of our party in the masses, can speak to thousands of readers every day. And we talk about the war on ideas, and the Tampa Bay Times wrote an article several years ago stating that this mural is missing or something like that, and it's quite typical of the state to lose evidence, especially concerning Africans, or even steal it for their personal property, which is also something that was stated in the Tampa Bay Times. And I wanted to expound on how, in a case of mismanagement or mismanagement of the state and how they effectively function, how does that highlight their illegitimacy?
Well, the thing is that colonialism seeks to destroy the identity of it cannot be legitimate. If the colonized exists as a legitimate entity, that's a statement about colonialism. So they work hard to disappear colonized. And that mural on that wall was the greatest testimony about what St. Louis is. One of the reasons they had a problem replacing it. They wait until I die, because they will, unless we have a movement here. But their objective is to disappear us, disappear this evidence of who they are and what the system is that relates to African people. So that's what that's about. And there's make no mistake about it. You don't lose that kind of stuff. The only thing the police department loses, the evidence is drugs and drug money. But usually they keep the evidence, right? And because they intended, but it's evidence against them. And that's the problem that they've got, it's evidence against them. And so they disappeared themselves. And they've done that before. I mean, when Connie Tucker was a member of our movement, they arrested Connie Tucker. They said that they arrested her for possession of marijuana. This was in 1960 and something. And when they got to court, they say they didn't have any marijuana because they had to use it to test it to find out what it was. But they convicted her for possession of marijuana. This is how this thing has worked against us all this time. But it's part of that, just stating how the government makes an assumption that African people are so despised by the general white population that or feared that they can do and say anything as long as they say it's black people, and they can get away with it. All they got to say is black and Russian. And people who, when I grew up in elementary school, being taught to get under the desk because of the atomic bomb. The Russians are going to drop the bomb. Russia, 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 Russia. And that's what they use. But I also want to make the point that we're at a time now where they can use entities like the FBI. They have. The FBI, you cannot explain, you cannot come up with a logical reason
while the FBI would come to my house at pre-dawn, 5 o'clock in the morning, with armored vehicles and with flashbang grenades and with camouflage wearing troops, with automatic weapons, and my empty house here in St. Petersburg at the same time, with all of that kind of assault. And they said it was because they had a search warrant that they wanted to serve. How can you explain that? How can you explain the fact that they were cordon off the neighborhood so that Black people who lived down the street from my house right here in St. Petersburg had to show ID to leave their homes and to come back to their homes? How does that fit into this whole notion that somehow it's just a search warrant because I'm working for the Russians? They didn't charge me, and they haven't charged me with having guns. They haven't charged me with selling drugs. They haven't charged me with sex trafficking or anything like that. They said they just wanted to do a search warrant, and they stole all kinds of materials, etc. And all they had to do was pay $1, get a copy of the Brennisfield newspaper, and they would have found everything that we stand on and have been standing on for the last 50 years.
Uhuru. In that same issue of the Burning Fear newspaper, it was written about a demonstration a couple of years afterwards regarding a separate case that reads, it was decided at the outset that Joe Waller would not go to jail, that we, the movement, would keep our brother free. Folly, and I think this is a play on words, I think the judge's name was Holly, but we nicknamed the African community, nicknamed him Folly, would not be allowed to use his court of injustice for its repressive ends. When Chairman went to court on Monday, December 15th, he did not go alone. The courtroom was crowded with over 100 of his brothers and sisters, Black and white. Folly was uptight. First, he ordered the hearing to be held in closed chambers. Then he ordered the hearing to be held in open court. Then he changed his mind and ordered the hearing to be held in chambers again. The movement went outside to take the justice of its position to the community. We began a long, slow picket line around the courthouse all the time, talking to those who came by, letting them know why we were there and what was going on inside. People began to join us in the picket line group. When Joe came out of the courthouse, talking about Chairman, when Joe came out of the courthouse, we knew we had won a victory that said loud and clear, no more injustice and darkness. No more will the Charles R. Follies of this nation be allowed to imprison our brothers and sisters for the ends of repressive injustice. From this day forward, we are a movement that will negotiate for nothing to save justice. And in the end, we will win. Right on. Going back to this mural incident, what do you recall about the immediate public reactions regarding your jailing?
It was really interesting because they had, I think, the longest hearing and the most unusual hearing they've ever had. They had hearings here in St. Petersburg before, like at 10 o'clock at night. You know, they had us taking us to court and what have you. It was extraordinary how they did that, and they had many people now claim that they really appreciate the mural coming down, etc. When the mural came down, you know, you had these people, some who became, you know, really heroic figures here, who said things like, "We didn't like the mural either, but we didn't like the way they took it down." You understand? Or which is, you know, that was common kind of refrain. But the journalists speaking, the African community really appreciated that. And that's especially the Africans who don't usually get addressed, don't get spoken to, who are never recognized for who they are, heroic forces in our community, who have to live on a daily basis with repression all the time. And they're not the big shots. They're not the ones with the mayor's phone number in the back pockets. They're not the ones with the contacts and things like that. They're not the ones who ever expect to run for office or have an officer, you know, even come to them. These are just ordinary Black people who have to survive out there. That's where we saw the tremendous respect, and that's why our base was. And this is the thing that terrified them. I mean, you know, to the point that the Pinellas County School Board came to us, not the board, but the school, whoever runs the whole system, and they said things to us like, we want you to teach us how to educate, you know, African people, because the thing is that we had African people, young people, and they had declared as uneducated. And yet they were writing newsletters. They were putting out propaganda. They were quoting Che Guevara, Mao Zedong. They was doing all this stuff. Say, can you tell us how you did this? You know what I'm saying? Because we want to say, you know, a people wants to be free will learn anything to be free. But so you can't teach them how to do this. You understand? And so that was our base. That was what we worked with all the time, and that's what we have to be. That's the key thing. That's why we talk about what we're trying to do in St. Petersburg now. We're trying to snickify this movement. We want to take real organizing back put it back in place, as opposed to this play stuff where you pretend that you got friends because they don't shut you down on Facebook. You know, I got X numbers of friends. You never know, never will know, except don't even know your next door neighbor and stuff, but these are supposed to be your friends. The cyberspace is unreal, but there is space in these communities where people are living and suffering for the most part. That's what we have to organize. That's why they were right for us. So on one occasion, I mean, David Chimarenga, I don't know if he was there or not, but we were organizing, and the African Pentecostal had brought in these really we call them hired guns, you know, because we were organized. We had to keep on the ground. So they had brought in people like Ralph Abernathy, who was the right hand of Martin Luther King, which is a proud statement. And they had people like A.D. King, Martin King's brother, was with them, and a lot of other people. They had this rally right there on 19th Street, maybe on something like 19th or 20th Street, the 9th Avenue, huge rally that we saw. And the Africans, many Africans, young people were outside the church, but this rally was happening. They could see what was happening inside through the windows, but they were outside the church. And they spotted this cop who had beaten this young African woman. And they had him trapped in the alley. So comrades came and he said, Chairman, you know, they got this cop who beat up this sister in the alley. And so I get there, and my sister had this cop, and she was slapping, you know, and just standing up and slapping the cop. He was terrified. When I showed up, you know, he called me Mr. Waller. I was conscious for where they was that they were calling at that time. But the thing is that they had all those Africans there, and I'm looking, and so I started agitating. Probably that they became more frightened, you know, because I was agitating. But I also knew that they had this African trapped in that alley. All they had to do was close off that alley for one kid, and the cops were coming. So I just raised my fist up and backed out. I mean, Uhuru, and the whole alley moved with me. That scared the hell out of me. When all those Africans stopped beating the cop and then followed me out of that place, they were terrified because I was able to do that with those Africans. And so they arrested me. A couple of days later, you know, I was coming from someplace and they surrounded the car, arrested me and what have you. And they said, well, because after that happened, somebody threw some bricks at the cop. I was excited that. What I did was save that cop's ass. And what I did was demonstrate the organization and the fact that the African working class had organization and had a capacity to move in this fact. That's scary.
Yeah, you know, and we talk about when you were in prison, and there is in this same issue an excerpt from your journal that was published 2 years after the Mural incident, and it was titled "Letters from the Grave." And in that you wrote, the masses were.
That was the letter that I wrote.
Yeah, well, it's this is from Alachua County Jail. Yeah.
It reads, the masses were moving, but I wonder, well, I realize that most of American rhetoric, which had to do with freedom only met the needs of a particular people and was often spoken in hypocrisy. Does this destroy the meaning of the American ideal of freedom? Are we to create a special kind of nationalism applicable to certain groups defined by its ethnic or racial peculiarities? Or will we attempt to realize opportunity given, nay, flung upon us, that of creating a meaningful freedom force, unqualified, particular to the needs of mankind? And in bold it reads, will we create a force true to mankind or an instrument of struggle, singular in nature and unilateral in application? So I wanted to ask if you can explain how this revolutionary act was pivotal in your life and shaped your revolutionary ideology and eventually formed the African.
When I was a child in this city, I told my grandmother, who did child care, mother, teaching me, working on time, another part of the town. And I told my grandmother that when I get older, I'm gonna get a big house, I'm gonna get a big car. I mean, I was really a child. I mean, I was really small. And she looked at me and said, why don't you get that? If you get it for everybody, you. And that's what she told me. And this is the grandmother who I was to learn. I was probably in my 70s before I understood that she did look at education all the time. She would read particular stories of life, and she would really sit me down. She'd read the Bible, the Lord read the Samson, and she would tell me children, soul that was made by his brother, things like that. It had a major in terms of shaping my perception of right, wrong, justice, and what it is that we need for. But my grandmother saying this was not peculiar to her. That's our culture. It really is our culture, and we get attacked and spoken badly because we think of the group. There was a really famous white man who became simple, who coined the term of the 9 neglect. I can't think of his name, not anymore. And he said that the problem that Black people have in this country, he was put forth an approach to us by the government. It should be like the 9 neglect, the 9 good things, especially the problem that we have. He said is matriarch. One, that women in our community believe, and 2, that we believe in collectivism, that we would always try to go with the group as opposed to like believing in the individual having to be important. So this is how you can explain what I'm talking about. He was the guy, he kind of spawned the term the 9 and he became a senator out of New York. But that wasn't what he was. He was a really, noted intellectual, and that was what he characterized as our problem. But that's who we are culture. That's why my grandmother would make that statement to me. Why don't you get everybody? What she was challenging is my colonial mentality. That I was thinking like a white, I was thinking like a colonizer, not just doing it for yourself. Yeah, that's what mother, man. That's what mother said to me. Yeah.
Yeah, and that takes me back to the book quotation from Chairman Omali Yeshitela. I want to read from Mural, Self-Reliance, Self-Determination before moving on to the next question. It reads here that when we talk about the struggle for self-reliance, for economic development, we're talking about the ability to produce and reproduce material life. We must begin to build our own power. We want to have the ability to control our communities. We want to make them impossible for the colonial state to administer. We have strategically established the aim of creating dual and contending state power. It is not just a power side by side with capitalism. It is in contention with capitalism. The approach, this is from the Bernardsburg newspaper in 1985. The approach of the African People's Socialist Party to the question of organizational self-reliance and economic development stands in opposition to the view of money-making for personal enrichment as a motive force. A genuine strategy for economic development and organizational self-reliance must be more than simply money-making institutions for our organization. It must be an anti-colonial, anti-capitalist strategy and conception and implementation. It must be a contending effort. And that leads to my next question is, if you could highlight some of the key programs and institutions developed by the African People's Socialist Party, just a few, I know that there are so many, and the Uhuru movement over the years, and how they reflect the revolutionary principles that ignited the Mural incident.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons, because we believe that we have self-conviction, self-life, that the fact that someone had taken away from us our capacity to do and reproduce life themselves was a fundamental contradiction. That they had made, they had captured the productive forces of Africa. We talk about the productive forces that come from land, we talk about the tools and instruments necessary to do the most critical component of the productive forces of human beings ourselves. That we didn't have control of any of that stuff. They had taken that away from us. Therefore, they had made us a dependent force of law that they could use any fashion that they wanted to use. And so that's what the struggle was about. And also, when we talk about this, it's really important for me to say that we believe in the science of society, that we are not just stumbling around in a bunch of accidents that somebody makes a good speech and therefore we got this, or that God or Allah or somebody did this for us, that there is a science of society. And that the basic and fundamental drive in human society, in any human society, in all human society, is the process of producing and reproducing life. That's fundamental. That's more fundamental than religion. That's more fundamental than any other thing that you can talk about. Because if you don't have life, you got nothing. You ain't gonna have to worry about going to heaven, but you ain't here. You have nothing. You have nobody to pray to, nothing to pray, nobody to pray. So the question is life, and that's what human beings are involved in all the time. Production and reproduction of human life. How do human beings produce life? Human beings produce life. Some of it you already know about, even if you don't like bargain, gay. But you know, when you turn the lights down low and say, "Come over," you know, what you do, you got super mind, and what have you. You don't say, "Let's go and produce and reproduce life," but that's what's on your mind in terms of technically, or that is the reproduction of ourselves as a people. And it's producing and reproducing life and the ability to feed, clothe, and house yourself. And that is something that develops progressively if you are successfully involved in that process. If you're not successfully involved in that process, what you find is, like in this country, even though Africa is outstanding when it comes to the Olympics, we win every Olympics, they call us French and Americans, etc. That's Africa out there doing that. Even though that's an outstanding feature of who we are in so many ways, but here we have a lifespan of something like 6 or 7 years less than white people who can't do that stuff that we do at this. And in like Sierra Leone, the average lifespan is something like 37 years old. Or with the indigenous people on these reservations, the average lifespan is something like 40 some odd years old. So it's not that we don't produce life. It's that we don't produce and reproduce life for us. We're doing it for this other force. And so that's part of what the struggle is about all the time, to achieve the capacity to produce life. That's what I'm talking about, the science of society. And that occurs within what we call a mode of production. That the process through which human beings engage all the time in producing and reproducing life, of creating
economic systems and stuff, that's a mode of production. That's how we define it. And that's really helpful for us because it keeps us off these, this tangent that you can be on. You know, like when I was a child, I remember my dog, this is before you were born, my dog, Fluffy, got hit by a car. And I grabbed the dog and prayed and prayed and prayed, and then Fluffy jumped up and ran away. I said, "Oh, miracle!" Well, I don't believe in miracles. I don't believe in most of the people talk about. I don't believe in that. You know, I didn't know when the dog was dead, it was alive. I was a child, and you know, like I would believe in the miracles. You know, I heard that. You know, the miracles did happen back in the day, but you know, I would believe in it if the miracles included, you know, sanitation and a car, so that he wouldn't have had to ride that donkey when he came in. But no miracles like that happened, you know. So I'm not one who's hung up on miracles and even bringing the dead back to life. They got these things in airports every time you go called defibrillators. It's created to bring people back to life and et cetera once they're supposed to be dead. So, but that's the process of creation and recreation life. The defibrillator, you know, that's the thing that keeps the species alive and what have you. That's what human beings are engaged in on a regular basis, except us. Because we create life for everybody but us, right? Not only do we create life, it talks about a parasitic relationship. We're talking about a social mode of production that's parasitic by definition. That's why Elvis Presley got all that money, and Ray Charles had to finally. He said, "I can't see, but I know black people can dance better than that." You understand? You know, it's a parasitic relationship that we enjoy. Yeah.
I want to say, you know, speaking of the defibrillator, I feel like the African People's Socialist Party is the defibrillator to reignite Africans back into political life.
Yes.
I wanted to speak on mass resistance from the same book quotation. It said that the example of the party-led St. Petersburg resistance is extremely important. The result, this is referring to the 1996 police murder of Tyrone Lewis, 18-year-old Tyrone Lewis. The resultant impact of our party's character and identity forged in this resistance is profound. We're able to affect every form of struggle in this resistance, from mass mobilization, armed struggle, and the electoral process. This is who we are, or in the vernacular of a certain sector of the community, this is how we roll. I wanted to ask, you know, regarding the legacy of the Mural incident, how does that continue to inspire and drive the work under your leadership of the African People's Socialist Party today?
Well, I think what's really important to understand is that that in the process of changing the world, people become changed. And the real difficulty issue that we're confronted with is locking people out, Africans out of this process of changing the world. And that's what the petty bourgeois so-called leaders do. That's what the groups I won't even call by name except Marcus Garvey called them the National Association for the something of certain people. You know, the thing is that the people have to be involved. I can't be the people. What I can do is provide some kind of leadership and organization, perhaps direction, but the people are the real makers of history. And none of what I can provide is going to be anything unless the people unite with it. And that's one of the reasons they would shut us up. That's why they come at 5 o'clock in the morning with grenades and stuff like that, armored vehicles to shut us up. And also to terrify the people, so the people be afraid to have a relationship with us, be afraid. I mean, there are people right now, and we are experiencing some of that even at this meeting here. There are people right now who are afraid to come to this building because they're afraid that the police might attack it again. They're afraid that the boss won't like it if they know they're here. They're afraid of all kinds of things that African people have to live with on a regular basis. You can't wear your hair a certain way, you can't wear your pants a certain way. The
white man don't like you, you can't judge, you can't be a star. All of this is the reality that we live in. So the objective, the most important objective, is to find ways to which you can facilitate the involvement, the participation of people in changing life. And when they engage in changing life, they become change. We just organized in St. Louis, Missouri. You know, you see in every community that we live in, these children have playing basketball in the streets. They got these little makeshift hoops up, and you have to run every time a car comes through. The children have to jump. Well, we raised $150,000, $160,000, something like that, and put up a basketball. And this is part of the production and reproduction of life too. This is controlling, you know, our environment. This is helping the people to see beyond the limitation that's been imposed on them by the oppressors. The people have to be able to see the future. And that's one of our responsibilities, is to help the people see the future, see a future bigger than that which has been imposed on them. That's what art is about. That's what, you know, this is, by the way, what this art, that they call art, was about. The limiting our view of the future. You can't see the future. That's why we have to have revolutionary artists who open the door to people, etc., so they can see beyond what's been imposed on them. So that's what we're about. That's what we've always been about. That's what we've been fighting for. We know that the people are the real makers of this district. And you asked me a question some time ago, and I just be fighting.
All right. I want to go. Okay, I want to read from the article again. This is that same issue.
My dad used to tell me also, which goes to them for just love. My dad used to say, when you got your hand in the lion's mouth, you know, you understand? So I wasn't being that easy when I was talking about your life.
It reads, right now, Brother Waller, speaking of Chairman Omala Shatella, is waiting for redemption from the U.S. Supreme Court. They're deciding whether Brother Waller was placed in double jeopardy. I spoke on this earlier. They're deciding ultimately if this man who gave and is giving his intellect, time, and sweat to Black folks can once again be a free man. The FBI targeted you. They're claiming that there's bogus charge of evading Russian agents. I want to know if you can elaborate on the reasons again behind this attack, connecting the work, your lifelong revolutionary work, to this, to your action during the mural.
Hold on. This whole question about poor, I was dragged around for 7 years. I would go to prison and get a field bond, stuff like that. I'd be in prison for several months and get off field bond. And then they arrest me for any kind of thing like that. And I was out on the field bond. We had a situation where this young brother, his name was Black principal, had been shot in the head by highway patrol. And the guy who headed the NAACP asked us to come and to help him organize to deal with that. They had done boycotts in Pensacola, was a city where the guy who was the governor of Florida, Reuben Askew, and he was the guy who was going to be Jimmy Carter, because the Democratic Party hadn't been able to win the presidential election since Nixon had the Southern strategy. So they had to find a Southern fact who they could run for office and still hold the vote of the Southern white people. And so this guy, Reuben Askew, was the guy. He was a Sunday school teacher, I think Presbyterian or something like that, Sunday school teacher, and he was the governor. But in his hometown, this young brother had been shot in the head, blew his head off by a cop, and the highway patrolman, you know, made nasty statements like, you know, I don't dislike Black people, but I think they're wonderful. In fact, I'd like to have a couple to put in my backyard for my dog because they're cheaper than the dog house, stuff like that, dog biscuits. This is the kind of garbage in Asheville's hometown.
So we began to organize, around that and other things that the governor was involved in. So we had massive campaigns. And then on one occasion, I got this phone call from a person who's well known now as an activist, Claude Anderson, who was working in the office of Askew. So he called me and he said, the governor we've heard that you're going to have a demonstration at the governor's mansion. And we don't want you to have a demonstration at the governor's mansion, put it at the Capitol, because the governor's mansion is clearly targeting the governor. And the governor didn't want to be targeted like that because he was going to be the next president from their plan. So I said, well, yeah. We ain't got time to change plans now. That we're busy with dealing with this case that they're dealing. I know we have a problem. We're not planning any demonstration like that, but we got this case that we got to deal with. That's what we're conscious. So he says, where is the court going to be? What day? Where is the trial? I told him what day, what trial, and then I worked courthouse, and I walked in the courthouse, and the judge started talking about Mr. Wallace. That these are different times, different days, and back in the day that whole Mural was up there, and if he had a chance, he never would have done it again. Something to that thing. What? And the guy finally said that he just dropping this stuff now and sentencing to you to the time you've already served. Now, what did that was the people. People did that. Now, that's what the key question is, because they thought we were coming with the people to the governor's crib, and we have been doing all this organizing around the people. So what we have to do here is build Freedom Summer right here. Freedom Summer right here in St. Petersburg. This is the headquarters of much of the struggle that's happening in the world, right here in St. Petersburg, Florida. And we have to take ownership of that, build Freedom Summer here, and build a movement that upon which our lawyers can stand on the shoulders of this movement. Powerful movement. This will give the lawyers the kind of courage to do what needs to be done in the courtroom. It will allow them, and it will help the court to understand that the mass of the people who are here, they know and can see through this lie about being some kind of Russian agent. And if there's a Russian agent, it's probably the person who named this city, St. Petersburg, because it's a Russian city that they named it for, and I didn't have nothing to do with that. Etc. So, I just think that this is something that's really important. People are the real makers of history.
Well, we're running low on time. I wanted to know if we had time for more questions. It looks like we have to wrap up. Let's wrap up with one final question. Looking into the future, what are the primary? What do you say to the next next generation of revolutionaries who are looking for a mural, metaphorically or not, to take down in their?
Well, I truly believe I cannot overstate my belief in the power of people. I cannot overstate my belief that we have to make the struggle for freedom. The U.S. government attacked our homes, attacked our offices, and then waited for 9 months before even back. They didn't take me to jail. They just held me in handcuffs. They invaded our offices, our spaces, terrorized my wife in the neighborhood, Penny Hess and Jesse Neville. They did all of that stuff, and they did not even arrest us. For 9 months, they didn't arrest us. They didn't indict us. And I'm convinced that one of the things reason is that they wanted, among other things, they thought that they come with this kind of heavy armor that we'll do just like all these other people who they attack. And we'll come in and ask for some kind of plea deal. We'll confess to something that we didn't do in order to try to get off easy. And so that's one thing I think. I think they were surprised that they didn't get that response. I think that they also would have liked us, for me to run. Then to give them a legitimate reason for a charge, as opposed to this bogus thing that got down. Or that they would have liked for me to get a response from
recognizing some history I got from the 1960s. When I say history I have, I'm talking about the after the 1960s. I think that they would have liked a response, that some kind of armed response or something like that, that would have justified them being able to attack and harm us that way. But the fact is that Black people have fought for this democratic space, and we're not surrendering this democratic space. We're going to fight for the right to have free speech. We're going to fight for the right for this constitution that they talk about to apply to African people. This is the critical aspect of the struggle that we're involved in. We cannot abandon. And we have to fight in the context, make this fight not to integrate into America, but to have the right to be free from it. And this is part of what it is that we have to really push for, fight for, and give legitimacy to that concept, that perception. And we're not going anywhere. They should know that we're not going anywhere. We've done too much work in this country. Black people have, indigenous people have. We're not going anywhere. If somebody leaves, it ain't gonna be us. And if somebody runs, it ain't gonna be us. You understand? And what you're gonna be running from when you run is from this Constitution that you said you believe in, the First Amendment, the Bill of Rights that you said you believe in. This is the question that all the people who characterize themselves as Americans who live in this territory have to be willing to fight for. Fight for that. There's nothing wrong with First Amendment rights. There's nothing wrong with free speech. There's nothing wrong with freedom of assembly. There's nothing wrong with being free from unreasonable search and seizures and things like that. That's righteous. And I'm not surrendering that because you come up with some fraudulent attack on me and our people. So I'm asking, I say it's really important for young Africans who are looking for their own mural. Is that what you can find? The mural is, you can find it in the African People's Socialist Party. That's where it's located. Join the party. And I want to say that you'll see more from us. This process of Freedom Summit is going to express itself in 1,000 different ways in the days and weeks to come. I just want to say that right away. It's just open up. We're going to be better organized next Sunday.
Uhuru. And I want to add to that. I want to, join the party. There's a place for you. You got the nail. If you got a nail salon, you do your nails. You got red, black, and green paint. I want you to organize a nail party. If you do hair, make a hair party. Make everything about organizing political education. There's work for you. We got 201 phone calls that we did during outreach. If you got a voice, you can make a call. If you want to distribute flyers, we put out over 1,000 posters regarding, in terms of our outreach that we've been doing right here in Pittsburgh, Florida. And we're organizing all over the nation, all over the globe. So we want you. We need you to be a part of this process here. Join the African Party. Go to apsp.org. Go to the membership link. Join. If you can't join, volunteer. Get involved in any way, because it's not about the next generation. It's about this generation. It's about making this revolution happen in our lifetime. It's going to happen in our lifetime. So that's what we're asking for you to do right now. And if you're tuning in and you're part of Solidarity, go to the Solidarity movement and get work and get on the ground and get to work. I also wanted to say that we want to call for people to sign up for AV as well. We have so many sectors. Any skills that you have, you can contribute to this movement. Our last, I want to make this announcement. We have the Not One Step Backwards to drop the charges against the Uhuru on Saturday, August 31st. That's this year. And people from all over the world are going to be converging and convening in St. Petersburg, Florida for this historic rally. It's from 1 p.m. to 4 p.m. right across the street. And we also have the Hands Off Uhuru trial date. That begins September 3rd. We want to pack the courthouse. We're going to put the state on trial. That's going to be at the Tampa Division Courthouse. That's 801 North Florida Avenue in Tampa, Florida, 33602. We're gonna have vans, we've got buses, we're filling them up. We're gonna have sign-up sheets. If you need a ride to the courthouse from your courthouse, we can do that. Go to handsoffwahuru.org, go ahead and sign up so you can get alerts and be in the know for what's gonna happen in Tampa, and you can be there for this historic trial. And we also want you to book the chairman in your city, in your campus. We wanna defend the right to build political and economic power in the hands of the African community. So contact us. You can reach us by email at info@uhurutours.com, or you can give us a call, 727-914-3621. We have the O'Malley Taught Me Political Education series held every Sunday at 9 a.m. Central on YouTube and Facebook. That's the opportunity for you to hear more from the chairman. I know we had more questions, and that's your opportunity to ask those questions and get in touch and let your voice be heard. Chairman's newest book, The Verdict Is In, Reparations Now, is available. And it's the 1982 World Tribunal on Reparations to African People. You can get that at the burningspear.store. That's the website, www.theburningspear.store. And we need your help also on building these Sunday rallies. We want to have people join in security teams, outreach teams. If you know how to cook well, keyword well, bring those skills and resources right here, and you can get training and you can help us build. I want to salute my comrades Marvin and Javian for helping this rally and getting it going. And like the comrade, like Chairman just said, we're going to build. It's going to be better next time. We're going to make sure that all of the components and everything is equipped so that we can have a dynamic rally. And also want to encourage everybody to get subscribed to the Burning Spear newspaper. That's our right there. Comrade Kenya is in the back holding it up right there. It's for sale for $1 right now. It's all out for the Uhuru 3, all out for the Uhuru 3 trial. Go ahead and get a copy, get subscribed to that. And you can, if you're a party member, make sure you get your monthly bundle so you can sell them. If you know a store that can distribute them for you, go ahead and sell a bundle. If you have your own shop, go ahead and get your bundle so that you can sell the Burning Spear newspaper and make sure that we're getting news out about the revolution. And I really want to adjourn this meeting. I want to say
I'd like to return to the announcement. I just wanted to acknowledge the comrades, brothers and sisters who are in Africa suffer serious infrastructure issues there. Talk about a parasitic relationship. So Europe and America suck all the resources out of the continent of Africa. So most of the people, many of the people who are participating in this meeting on the continent of Africa, they're in group settings and collectively doing this because it's not that easy for individuals to do that. I want to say that because that's the part aspect of our movement. It's also one of the important reasons that they attacked us, because we do have a party throughout South Africa, not just people who do protest work, but actually organized on the ground in various provinces in South Africa, in Namibia, in Swaziland, in Ghana, in Sierra Leone, various other places on the continent of Africa. And also, that's really important. I wanted to say that because these comrades are there, and they had to do some stuff to get involved in this meeting right here. And I wanted to recognize that. Extraordinary young leaders. I can't overstate the power of their presence in our party and our movement, what they do, what they bring to that movement. And also their comrades who in England and France, Bob back there has been with us to England and France and various other places. Not only may have gone to Belgium with us as well, where we have. Yeah, you were in Belgium, huh? You didn't go to Belgium? Okay.
We did the States though.
Okay. This is, the party is in all of these places, and that's one of the reasons they see us as a problem.
And so also back on July 27th, it's going to be a really, really, really important event prior to the August 31st, July 27th. So we will be getting information out to you if it's not already available, what's going to happen there. And, you know, we're talking about it's boots on the ground. This is the ground game now. Just that social media stuff is not, you know, we're actually talking about snickifying this movement and people actually doing the work in communities, going door to door, passing out flyers, having forums and discussion and questioning human beings, real human beings. So that's what we're looking for. And you know, we experienced a certain weakness up to now. But is there anybody, for example, in this room who is willing to participate in meetings to build on the ground? I think let's get it simple. Right on. Yeah, let's get it here. Can we get that opinion so that we can, we won't be having meetings to get this stuff done. We got to be out here.
I want to close out. You know, as we talk about the membership, there's a poster that there's that in the Uhuru House in St. Louis. In Oakland, where I grew up, and it was a beautiful painting of these African women holding hands and leaning back as if they were going in a circle and playing. And it said, if you can talk, you can sing, and if you can walk, you can dance. And I think that really highlights the ideology of the African Socialist Party, that there is a place for you. So we want you to join, and we want you to get organized, and we want you to move forward with the right organization, and that is the African Socialist Party. I also am fond of some of our chants, and we would begin and close out our meeting by saying the Swahili term that many of you are familiar with. It is Africa is our land, and it sounds very beautiful, booming, especially when I remember people were saying it, saying "Ease Wele too," and then the crowd would respond, "E Africa." So I want to do that here to close out. Ease Wele too. E Africa.